Well, hey everybody, it's Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco. You can find more information at lamarzocco.usa.com. Reach out. Email is info@lamarzocco.usa.com. Their machines are the cornerstone, I would say, of the coffee industry in so many ways. We've grown up with La Marzocco's. I have. They're one of the world's, if not the world's, most dependable espresso machine. This is my opinion. I recommend them quite often. La Marzocco is known for beauty. They're known for dependability. Like I said, they're also known for innovation around things in the cafe that the operators of the cafe and the baristas who use the equipment really prize and value and need. I think that's what innovation should be about, is something that actually moves the needle to make coffee better and make life better for coffee people. And so across the different offerings they have, different configurations of espresso machines, highly technical, highly manual, and everywhere in between. La Marzocco has been making espresso machines for nearly 100 years. And they have served the industry well. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to serve your cafe very well also. So reach out to them again, info@lamarzocco.usa.com. Check out the website, lamarzocco.usa.com. Now, today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Rattleware at rattleware.com. So I always think, and I never got this really cleared up, but Rattleware, like, is it because the small wares, they rattle around when you carry? I don't know, but it's a cool name. But their product is all based on the idea that you want the small wares to be something that's just part of the fabric of your business. You don't want to notice it too much. You just want it to work really well. That's what they design their products to do. So go to rattleware.com. You'll see the whisks, the knock boxes, shot glasses, steaming pitchers, etc. All of these things that your cafe needs to make it work together, that's what they have. And they love helping facilitate your success. So check them out for your small wares over at rattleware.com. Now, today's episode, I want to talk to you about something I found myself talking about with a couple of different clients. And this has to do with the entrepreneurial case for stopping. One of my clients, after a long time of operation, has decided that they're going to move towards selling their cafe. And then that same thing happened with someone who actually wasn't a client, but they were considering it, and the situation, it turns out, is something that is just progressively, it's obvious that this is something they need to do. They need to move past this chapter in their life with the cafe and move into something else. That doesn't mean they're not going to come back to coffee or any form of cafe in the future. It just means that right now this chapter is closing. Now, we had an episode a long time ago about selling your business, and I think it was called Graceful Exits or something like that. And this happens a lot. And ultimately, what I wanted to address here today is that given, the conditions we are operating in as entrepreneurs, you would be forgiven for assuming that if you are doing something like moving away from or closing your cafe or selling your cafe, that is an abject failure, that is somehow an indictment on you. And certainly we all know, we all make mistakes, and there may be mistakes at the back of some of these decisions. But I think that ultimately we are pressured to think that the perpetuation and the eternal perpetual growth of our cafe is a sign that we are that we were right to open it, that we are good operators or leaders in the business because it's growing and growing and growing. It just doesn't stop growing, and it will never stop, period. But as was brought up in that episode about graceful exits, you're going to exit the company one way or another. Not to be too macabre about that, but it's basically either you're going to be forced to exit, because we can't live forever unless you're the Highlander, but the other way is simply to pass it on to the next generation. It could be family members. It could be, somebody who is a staff member that you sell the business to, or somebody who's not in the cafe you sell it to, or you just close it. And that's the end. Now, coffee shops you want them to last. Okay. But it is not going to be a forever thing. It is ephemeral. It is a temporary lining up of your passion and desire and mission and vision, the need of your community and their desires, and having staff, and you all kind of align into this moment, and that moment might last for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, who knows. But there is a time limit often with these things. Even the best cafes, or I'd say the longest running cafes out there, they're not really the same as they were before. They've been built and rebuilt, and they're under different ownership. The space is the same, but the cafe as you knew it before is not necessarily there. You think the classic thought experiment of the ship of Theseus, where Theseus's ship is rebuilt plank by plank over hundreds of years, I think. And the question, of course, philosophically is that still the ship of Theseus? And so are these cafes that are 100 years old, 200, 500 years old? I mean, the cafe that the people who frequented it knew back in the day when it first opened, that's not around anymore. It's got the same name. So even if you see somebody with a long history, very long history, those are rare cases where it's still kind of the same experience. You could say, I think objectively, that the cafe as you knew it has evolved, and that's okay. But the thing is about entrepreneurship is that, and this is what I told these people in our calls, it can't just be something that you do once and then that's it. And then the perpetuation of that one idea in that one chapter is what makes you the entrepreneur. Starting is something that you can do inside the thing you started. And stopping is part of this as well. Learning that this is what we want to do. We want to close the chapter on this, and we want to open this next chapter. That means for some people, closing the cafe and moving on with the next chapter of their lives, which I'd argue, and I did argue, is just as entrepreneurial as starting your business in the first place. If it's turned out to be that it's too much of a strain on your family, your own mental and emotional health, the numbers just don't line up, and you don't have the wherewithal to be able at this moment, not because of a lack of you as a person of infinite worth. Okay, it's just that in this moment you don't want to expend the enormous amounts of energy that it would take to just keep this thing propped up and going. Then there's no shame in saying, look, this next chapter, this is just as much a stepping into a calculated risk as it was to make the business plan, to get the business loan, to buy the equipment, open the doors to this cafe. The selling of the equipment, the closing of the doors, and the opening of another chapter for yourself is just as entrepreneurial. Now, that's pretty final. That's a pretty extreme case. Okay, you might not be in that position right now, but you may be in a position where you're still kind of married to the first ideas you had of opening this coffee shop that you put in your business plan, and you haven't allowed yourself yet to understand that there's a certain death that needs to happen where you open yourself up to new possibilities within your business operating. So even maybe a year or two into the business, you can take another entrepreneurial leap and reconfigure, refine, reorganize, and prioritize. And sometimes that means changing your hours. I just saw a post today about a cafe in LA who's changing their structure because they have to be sustainable. And it's a wonderful cafe and wonderful people. And I was thinking that's exactly what we should be doing. But that's entrepreneurial. That's the same feeling you had when you started the business. You're having that same feeling again. And if you go too long without delving into that entrepreneurial calculated risk mode, then you might not be able to tend your business as well as it needs to be tended to, because it does need some re-upping, regeneration, refreshment from time to time. And again, sometimes that means that it's run its course and you need to call it and say, okay, that was great. We did wonderful work. And this now is the end of that chapter. Or you say, here within the business, we're shifting the business model. A classic example, back in a few years ago, we talked to Joe Coffee Roasters in Rochester, New York, who had a full scale coffee shop dream actualized, in the sense that they had this roastery, an award winning roastery, a cafe space that had wonderful coffee, huge foot traffic. They had music, they had cocktails, they had food program. I mean, they had it all. COVID came and they took that opportunity to close it all down. And now they operate as a simple roastery with a severely scaled down staff, with a very limited coffee bar operations open hours, and they are super happy about it. And so you can be kind of beholden to this stuff that you've said yes to and not know how to stop it. And for some people, the pandemic was an opportunity to say, oh, thank God, finally we can do this thing that we wanted to, which is exit without the like, oh, why did you do that question? Because this was working. And so you should keep doing it because it's working. But who is it working for? Is it sustainable? Is it working long term? That's the question you have to think about. And being entrepreneurial is, again, not just about starting, but it's about refreshing, reorganizing, reprioritizing. And sometimes it's about stopping. You can stop something midstream and start something else, or you can stop entirely. And doing that in a mindful and an intentional way is a noble thing. It really is. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And maybe you find yourself at one of those different places in your cafe at this moment, whether it's on the extreme end of like we're getting ready to shutter the doors, or you're just thinking, there's a version 2 or a version 3 of this that doesn't include some of the things we used to do, but opens up the possibility for new things. And so that's a good practice to have. Flex that entrepreneurial muscle, and you'll find more often than not you'll have a little bit more margin and a stronger follow through for the things that you are doing, because you know that you've given it as much thought as it possibly can have, and that the reasons behind it are because you've chosen it, truly chosen it, not just felt obligated. And that makes a big difference. So thanks everybody again for being here. And as always, we'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.